For those of you who don't know me, there's a QR code at the bottom of the screen that can help you connect to my LinkedIn thing. I am one of those people who said probably about 6 years ago, QR codes, what's the point in them? I mean, they're everywhere now, right? So what do I know about technology? But yeah, Hung's asked me to be provocative. Hung's asked me to be a little bit challenging and also relevant. So let's see how we go with that. I'm going to start out, I always do this, right? There are lots of people way cleverer than I would ever even wish to be. So here's the economist Thomas Kuhn, and this is actually an important frame to put in here. We're in a crisis. I don't care what anybody says, whether it's recession light. You just have to look at the political, social, and economic fields across the world and conflict and everything else. We're in a crisis, right? It may not be that we have the answers to this particular crisis, so we just have to keep hopping along crises. But what Kuhn said back in his work on the scientific revolutions era, far from a cumulative process, it is the reconstruction of the field from new fundamentals. Now, if I would wish anything in the world, it would be that we have a new set of fundamentals in politics, economics, education, healthcare, justice, and looking after the planet. We absolutely need new fundamentals. So thank you, Thomas, for that. I'm going to give you 3 perils and 4 horsemen to kind of give it a bit of a metaphor. Now, it's not all gloom and doom. It is hopefully a bit of a reality check. But these are the 3 things that I have sensed we're just a little bit too locked into, hooked into, whatever it is. And the first peril is orthodoxy. You know that thing where we say, we've always done it that way, right? And you know that thing where we go, I've got the playbook of tradition here behind me. Well, guess what? That crisis that we're in and the systems that are prevailing around it, they do not care about your orthodoxy. They laugh at your orthodoxy and they say, give it your best shot because it's just going to bounce off me. It's not good enough anymore. So what I like is unorthodox. What I really see is people who can take unorthodox thinking, and guess what? The bots will not help you be that unorthodox, because as Hung said, they are trained on what we already have fed them. Human beings are potentially the only sentient species with this thing called imagination. So somebody once said to me, art always leads the way. And guess what? It does. Because what is art? Imagination and interpretation in imaginative senses. So let's get rid of orthodoxies as a peril. The other one is delusion. I kind of flick across being really angry with leaders about their lacking capability and then feeling really sorry for them, because I'm almost like, why on earth would they have the answers to the polycrisis situation that we're in? So I have a very kind of flitting feel on that one. But what I don't like is where leaders are delusional, that they think they have the answers, they think they've seen this before, and they think they can work through. They can't. So I love it when leaders say, do you know what? I'm a bit of an idiot. I don't know what I'm doing here. Can we get a bit more hive mind, collectiveness? And guess what? Imagination and experimentation. The other thing I don't like, it's a very posh word, this one, isn't it? Intransigence. Oh, I say. What do we mean by that? You know, when people kind of look at those outlying organisations who break the rules and make amazing things happen, guess what they say? Well, it won't work here, they say. It's all right for them, they say. They're a startup, they say. They're in healthcare, they say. They just dismiss potential signals from the future which are telling them that there's something in that, and I don't like the thought of that. So those are the 3 perils I'm going to start with, and then here's another very clever individual from the 1930s. This is what we're up against, people. The difficulty lies not in the new ideas, but escaping from the old ones. That is what I see, sadly, in executive boardrooms and HR senior teams far too often. We can't escape from the old ideas. So John Maynard Keynes, thank you for that. Now, here's the 4 horsemen, right? Now, I've made this handout friendly. That's my way of saying I've got too much slide text. But really, what are the 4 horsemen of apocalyptic change? I don't know about you, but I can smell change fatigue when I walk into an organization. I can sense people weary with the burden of change everywhere I look. They almost hear the word and they want to expletive a reply back to change. We don't even like change. We hate change now. We've kind of fallen out of love with it. Why? Because we're stuck. The 4 horsemen, the first one is the horseman of stagnation. This is where we are thinking we've got the playbooks, the strategies, the culture, all of those things. No, No, you haven't. It will not give you a competitive advantage. The other one is confusion. So I asked some very senior HR practitioners last week, if you could have a magic wand, what would be the one thing that you would wish into existence? And they thought about it for a while. I made sure I said limitless budget is off the table, because that's an easy answer, right? But they came back with prioritization. It's like we almost change priorities every hour. We have so many priorities, it's an oxymoron. Priority equals one thing that we focus on. We are literally distracted hourly by what is the current priority. So we're confused, it's all fragmented. The other one is what I think we're seeing in a really bad way, which is this sense of overwork. And the Japanese have a term for it. They call it karoshi, which means you work yourself to death. It's an absolute sin and a crime that we've got advanced technology and we're working something like 60, 80-hour weeks. When John Maynard Keynes, who you heard about earlier on in the 30s, said by now we'd be working a 15-hour week. Hats off to Iceland. Big pioneers on the 4-day working week. That's how you solve this problem. You don't just do more of it, you do smarter of it, but we're in exhaustive overload. So just at the time that we need absolute imagination, guess what? We're too tired to do it. That's a cycle we have to break. And then the last one, I've come up with this term because it didn't exist. It might exist, but I don't know. Micro-termism. It's not even small-termism. It's literally how many profits have we made in the last hour, not in the last quarter anymore. It's this almost constant sense of trying to tune the dashboard to say, if we aren't tuning up in an hour, we've got to turbocharge our efforts for the next 2 hours. Like, really, have we got it down to that level of micro-termism? So those are the challenges, but what they are is the system saying to us, we need something different and radical. We need to depart from, largely, 20th century industrial orthodoxies. Pedagogical learning has its place, but guess what? Heutagogical learning and andragogical learning is probably what we see much more of and what we need more, and what Hung talked about just in conversations. I don't see people who say, I can't wait to go on that next training course. That's just not something we say. But what we do is we capture these imaginative conversations with people. That's where the learning happens, and that's the magic of us versus machines in some respects. So here we go. George Box, statistician, famous for this quote, all models are wrong, but some are useful. I've hacked it to say all consultants are wrong, but some are useful. And I'm a consultant, so I'm kind of, self-edifying a little bit there. So McKinsey, well, you might have heard of those, small consulting firm, not very profitable. They've come up with 5 urgent shifts for HR. They say we've got to make workforce planning genuinely strategic and skills-based. If I had a penny for every time I've heard that, I'd probably have about 56p, because it is a regular thing that's coming through. They say we've got to fix faltering talent acquisition. No disrespect to anybody in this room in talent acquisition, but I think you know how hard the yards are. I think we know how difficult it is now in a really odd market. They talk about integrating performance, L&D, and succession. So it isn't just about content and courses. It's about in the flow, and it's about a link to something that we need. Treating employee experience as a core system. I still find myself a little bit kind of sullied by thinking, why isn't it? Customer experience has been king for I don't know how long, and we still do a slightly dumbed-down version for our own colleagues. It's like that should be the most superior thing in the world, because guess what? All the research will tell you that if you look after your people, if they are absolutely on their game, your customer experience goes up by a consequence. It's proven in studies on studies. And then what McKinsey have said, I wonder why they've said this. Maybe they have a solution for it. I don't know, I'm just speculating. But they've said modernize HR delivery with shared service centers and Gen AI. I nearly spat my coffee out when I read that, because I thought I can even hear Dave Ulrich saying it in the 1990s. I'm like, McKinsey, have you come back in time in a too nostalgic a sense? But actually, there's something wrong in this. Transformation is not more of what we do plus AI. That is not transformation. That is just this iterative technological deployment thing that kind of hasn't worked in the past. Deloitte publish human capital trends reports every year. What I like about this is a bit more interesting, because they're talking about tensions and trade-offs. Now, again, in my work consulting with HR directors and HR leaders, that's going on all the time. Is it augmentation versus automation? Is it kind of outsourcing to the bots, or is it that we make our human beings a little bit better because of advancing technologies. So the headline in the BBC News today was, guess what? There are about 1 million jobs in London that are going to be affected by AI. I mean, they haven't really said how, but some of the telemarketing roles and so on are likely to be not needed anymore. I don't know about you, but like, I don't buy from people who try and sell me stuff in the human form. I'm probably less likely to want to buy it if it's in a bot form, but who knows what techniques they're using. But that's a trade-off we've got to think about. Laszlo Bock, if you know him from his Google VP of HR days, has got some beautiful thinking about AI. What he's saying is, actually, potentially, our route to competence, or at least know-how, is probably going to be on steroids with AI. Because guess what? If I'm a leader and I don't know what design thinking is, I can get my bot to tell me what it is. That doesn't make me competent, though, because I haven't done it yet. But what we're saying here is there's a very different form that this technology gives us. Personalization versus standardization. Again, if we've not hyped up hyper-personalization enough, I'm just going to say it again. What the hell do we mean by it? However, what we can see is there is a potential to say, with better intelligence, better data, better know-how, better tools, we might just be able to give you that personalized experience without making you an indulgent Gen Z YouTuber. Do you know what I mean? It's that kind of frame. No disrespect to anybody who's a Gen Z YouTuber. Agility versus stability. You can kind of see what's going on here. Outcome versus output. I still see so many people who measure outputs. And I'm like, but what's the outcome? What's the impact? What's the value you're creating? Empowerment versus control. What I'm seeing, actually, is a pre-COVID snapback to I'm in charge, I'll tell you when you come to the office, and if you think you're going to coffee badge swipe, I'm going to send my drone out to follow you home. I mean, that's the kind of surveillance crap we're getting here. That's not control, that's fear, but that's what we're seeing. And then potential versus predictability. Potential's been a bit of a holy grail in the HR world. You will not find it on a 9-box grid, by the way. You'll see biases on a 9-box grid, but you won't see potential necessarily in a 9-box grid. What even is potential in 2025 into 2026? Is it, like we've seen in a rather large consulting firm, I'm just going to sack about 11,000 of my employees because they can't do AI? Is that what we're saying? You've got so little potential because you can't find a way through the botosphere? Is that a thing? I don't know. I've just made it up. So there's something in that. Right, okay, who else is doing it? Gartner put on really nice events. If you've ever been to one, they're very nice. I wonder where they got this playbook from, leader and manager development. Right, I'm sick of this. I have had decade upon decade of both HR and senior teams saying this: we've got to improve management capability. It's like, not being funny, you've had 30 years on the watch on this. I think the capability problem may not be in the people you're saying need capability if you can't get that right. But let's be fair, right? The role of a leader and a manager is different now to what it was. For a start, everybody is kind of scared. There's a bit of an oxymoron here. They're scared of psychological safety, because it's being weaponized, saying, you can't ask me to come in at 9:05 because I don't feel psychologically safe at 9:05. It's like, what? How have you conflated a bit late with psychological safety? Anyway, so there's that. Organizational culture, workforce planning, change management, technology optimization. I mean, that could have been from whatever decade you choose. So here's my running flush. I'm not a poker player, but you know, I understand that's a pretty good hand. Skills beats jobs. So what we're saying here is, it really, really doesn't matter what the heck you're called. It's the skills that you have that we can deploy and use that make a difference, not the title of the role. However, you try and do a job evaluation on somebody who wants to have director in their title, and you come back and say it's not a director, be prepared for an arm wrestle on that one, right? Because it's really precious. But anyway, there's a fixation we need to get rid of here. Employee experience is relational, right? So what does that mean? It is relational both in our relationship with our colleagues, with our organization, with our mission, with our communities, with our societies, with the people who we're there to serve. But increasingly what's important to people is security, balance, and belonging. Am I overloaded? And if I'm not overloaded, therefore I'm in jeopardy. I might be on the bottom of the bell curve. The bell curve is back, by the way. Did you know that the bottom 10% are absolutely worthless and we're sacking them all? Well, where's that come from? Jack Welch, 1980s. What's going on there? AI is fabric, not feature. Just remember that, right? AI is not a feature. It is not a technological upgrade. If we want to do this right, it has to be in the fabric of what we're doing. That's what transformation needs to feel and look like. And change has to change because we all fear it. So I call it oscillation. And loops of feedback. And I'm going to sort of talk to you a little bit about why I think that. Did I mention I got a book? Here's the book. So in 2022, I got the bug thinking, why on earth haven't we changed the HR operating model? I mean, I like Dave Ulrich and everything, but it is 2022 at the time, and that came in around about 1996 or 7. Like, I don't know anybody else that's still playing to the same playbook. It's like, you know, the crazy gang at Wimbledon expecting to still win trophies with a long ball if you're into that kind of sport. So I had a go at creating one, and what did I want to do? I wanted to reflect what I think the modern profession needs to be about. So for a start, it needs to have a horizontal that's built around systems and science. Guess what? All work is a system. Systems are everything, and everything's a system. And science, I mean, if anything, the calls that I'm seeing on LinkedIn is for some form of professional, like, regulation and supervision for HR people. But I think we've got a lot of untapped science potential. I know lots of people with a psychology degree who, guess what, end up being some kind of senior manager wet-noser as a business partner. I'm like, that's not what you're there to do. You want to bring science into the boardroom and say your controlling remote policy is going to kill morale because these social expectancy theories tell us we're on a downward decline. Don't do it, senior leaders, because science tells you not to do it. And then I think the sort of vertical on this one is about us having fantastic processes. Absolutely, what people want from us are things that can create value for them and give them surety and so on. And the best way we can do that is to think like product managers. If we said to people in our organizations, if you had to pay a subscription for our policies, you know those things that protect you, that guide you, they'd go, you're having a laugh. Because most of them are so legalese and just above the point of misdemeanor. They're like, I'm never going to be that crappy. What on earth would I buy that policy for? We need products that people go, wow, I'm glad we've got this policy here because I know how it keeps me safe. I know how it keeps everybody straight. And I know when it goes wrong, what we do about it. But don't assume it's all going to go wrong. Assume we want to be noble and honourable and determined and committed and brave and calm and gentle and kind and perform well. Oh, I went a bit like existential then, didn't I? W. Edwards Deming might be known to some of you as a systems thinker, but this is the quote I really want people in business to remember, that the business that survives is one which has a system that anticipates the future, not just the quarterly reports and not just the immediate sales return, but like, where's this going? What could it look like? Send some probes out, get some signals from the future. And there's another quote that you might have heard of from William Gibson, the future's already here, it's just unevenly distributed, right? What that means is there's stuff lying around that you could say, that could be part of my future. What that needs is not just us sparring with a bot to get to that. That needs us to be alive and networked and feeding off hive mind and that kind of collective intelligence. We know how we got here, right? F.W. Taylor, the industrial model, fixed departments, top-down, standardized jobs. You know the playbook, right? We still kind of teach this at MBA level and in HRM stuff, okay? Maybe it's a sort of like a nostalgia living museum kind of well, no, actually. A lot of companies will look exactly like this. But work's different now. We're not in factories in the way that we used to be. My parents were shoe factory workers from Northampton, and they met there, and that was their social life. And everything was about shoes in Northampton, and then it wasn't. Because that's just not how everything works. So we've got this thing that teams are distributed. They're in different time zones, and they have been for ages. I don't know why people are so vexed about remote work. Because we've had globalization and the sun never setting on businesses forever. We've had salespeople in their Mondeos pounding up the M6 forever. We've never always brought people to this fixed vessel called the office where magical culture things happen. It's not Narnia. Do you know what I mean? There's something incredibly mistaken about that. Tech is modular. Challenges are interdisciplinary. Challenge, change, does not respect how your org design is. It doesn't care about your verticals. It says, I'm just going to give you some stuff to sort out. You work it out. So we think it might fit nicely in marketing. No, it doesn't. It bleeds across the whole organization. Learning is continuous and purpose is personal. So how do we do it? We have to unfix our organizations. They are no longer going to be these stratified, locked-in, job-crunching kind of entities. What does it look like? I had a go at it. It looks like this. Here's where I get very sympathetic with leaders, because what they don't know is they're no longer running one organization, they're running two. The legacy one and the future one. At the same time, in the same head, in the same board papers. If people still have board papers, do they have board papers now, or is it all virtual reality? I don't know. But anyway, so this is where we've got the intersection. That's probably where your transformation program sits. But what we've got to remind ourselves is what from the legacy holds us strong and true and powerful, but what in the future gives us hope and adaptability and a chance of success. And just recognize that you're running those two things at the same time. So forget organization design and development. I'm calling it organizational oscillation, because we're oscillating between the future and the present as a legacy. We might even look back to the past and go, how did we get to be this brilliant? Well, let's not lose that, but with a modern twist and an adaptable edge. So that's where I'm thinking we could find some gains if we accept that. So I've come up with this concept. If you know object-oriented design or object-oriented programming, one of its 7 kind of laws is a sense of polymorphism. What does polymorphic mean? It's from Greek. It means many forms. So what we're saying here is quoted by people like Peter Dennin. Polymorphism lets you program in the present with an eye on the future. It means an object in a program does different things depending on the data it receives. Well, guess what? I think organizations need to do different things depending on the data it receives. Different things being how we make decisions, how we organize the resource, how we get to new markets, how we recalibrate the business model, whatever it might be. And Frederick Laloux, one of my heroes, an ex-McKinsey consultant who saw the light and opted out and wrote Reinventing Organizations 11 years ago. Organizations that are not machines, but are living systems. If I see one thing in people I go to talk to who aren't in the HR or the executive suite, they just want this thing to feel alive, not like they are a cog in a machine where that's it, literally I am cranked as a handle. So this polymorphic concept is that we get comfortable with the fact that we change form, logic, and flow as the market depends on it, as our people depend on it. So that's what I want to usher into being. So what does it look like? Org oscillation, here's a bit of current to future, brought into being, org design by significant change or transformation, org development ongoing iteratively. There's always a third thing in OD practice that never gets talked about, and it's bizarre really, org effectiveness. Like, what's the point of it all? How do we measure it all? How do we use that to tune the development we need? So I think let's kind of abandon that a little bit and go into this sense of org oscillation, so that we're oscillating between present and future. We are literally like sound waves that are expanding with new opportunities and consolidating to make it safe, replicable, reliable, and trusted. That's the kind of sense I want it to do. So in a kind of literal sort of sense, OD, we see interventions. But if we're oscillating, we see rhythms, we see patterns, we see flows. OD loves a plan, but actually what we need to do is feel the pulse, quite literally the energy force that's coming through the organization. And where we see a change program, no, we're crafting a version release. Think of the organization as a platform that has upgraded operating systems with applications that sit on top of it that we know we deploy to make things better for us. So less of this, linearity, more of this, sound waves, version control. If you are an organization that's been around for, I don't know, decades, you're probably on version 10. Well, what's version 10.1 look like? And how will you know what version 11 is your aspiration to really break the mold and change the dynamic? If we looked at IBM from its origins as the tabulating machine co in the 1900s through to where it is now, it's gone through so many iterations of hardware and artificial intelligence with Watson into consulting and whatever they do now. So that's the kind of thing I'm hoping we can bring in. So What a polymorphic organisation isn't, though, is it isn't a complete chaotic departure, because guess what? That frightens people and may not be right. So if you need a division, have one. But remember, by nature, it's a divide. But it might be because you need it to protect something like your governance. But if you need some innovation and insight and inclusion, guess what? Break out of the divisions and create spaces where people come to and go, I've got some imagination, I've got some opportunities to fly an idea and some experimentation. Let's stop thinking about jobs and think about people who have a level of proficiency in what they do. And that might not just be defined by their job. So they have a proficiency stack that is built of competencies, skills, and capabilities. And guess what? If we want to use that more, we can say not what's your job title, but what's in your proficiency stack, because there's the work that we need you to do. So this is like skills-based organizations, kind of on speed. So that's what one looks like. Competencies, skills, and capabilities, we own it. We take it where we want to take it. So it's kind of the gig economy meets a really sort of dynamic sense of how we get work done. So you'll get a copy of these slides so you can see all the little text. So think of the polymorphic organization not as a structure, but as a platform, so that we have the systems and enablers. We have leadership energies. So that's a different way to frame leadership. It isn't just about their capability, it's their energy. It's what they've got the propensity to want to lead to. We work in spaces, not just divisions. We have stacks that show our potential and our performance levels. We run flywheels on performance to say, how do we get a rotating, accelerating sense of what adds value in what we're doing, all linked to the strongest sense of purpose that we can have. I once went to an organization and said, tell me what your purpose is. And they said, it's to make a profit. And I said, no, that's an outcome. They were in journalism and the media. So I said, you tell me now what your purpose is. And it's to tell accurate stories that make a difference to the world. And we just happen to have to make a profit. But let's not confuse the fact that profit isn't a purpose. It's an outcome. You have a purpose that tells you what you're here to do, to create value in the world. So I mentioned Laszlo Bock's AI thought piece. This is something that will link, I think, to 50 skills. AI kind of flattens performance because guess what? We can outsource stuff to it that means things that would take us weeks can just take us hours. Whether it's as good or not, I'm seeing some of the critique on the mushiness of some of the outputs from AI. Junior jobs will disappear. This is a big concern for us. I'm already seeing the demise of Saturday jobs. Do you remember those? A little bit of pin money to go and sell shoes in a shop or whatever. But actually, we need to think really serious about how do we get people into the workplace that normally was an entry-level job that they could rise through? Are we just going to parachute them into mid-level? Big, steep curve there. Learning velocity, modular design. So have a look at Laszlo's AI work, and it'll give us a sense of why I think a polymorphic organization needs to exist. And how do we get there? I think we could start year one with just a bit of polymorphism. Now, if you're thinking, who's already polymorphic? We probably all are a little bit, because we might have like an innovation hub, or we might have something going on that's a little bit edgy and different. So maybe 6.25% of that. But double it every year. Get more polymorphic. Get more shape-shifting. Get more confident in doing it. Until perhaps by year 5, we won't even need to mention the term polymorphic because we'll all be it. It'll be like, how's the water? Like, what's water? Like, how's polymorphic? Yeah, we're all polymorphic. Because my sense is in about 5 years' time, if we're not polymorphic, what will we be? Living museums, quite literally. And on that note, I'll kind of bring it to a close and just hope that that's given you some provocation as Hung asked me to do. It's not stasis, but it's not chaos. It's about intentional responsiveness. It's about an organization being primed to look after itself in the future and therefore look after its people that sit in there. So shape-shifting is the way to go. And that's not easy to say on a Tuesday morning, shape-shifting. That could come out wrong and link back to Hung's toilet metaphor from earlier. So just remember, Greek philosophers always had it right. The only constant really is change. Would somebody like to just put their hand up quickly? Who's going to put their hand up quickly? Right, okay. So you get the copy of the book that I've brought with me. And thanks very much for listening to me. Hung, back to you, my friend.
Brilliant stuff, Perry. I wonder whether we should do some Q&A, actually. Is it worth doing it now? Who's keeping time? Yeah, we've got plenty. It's worth keeping time. Do you want to give the mic back to Perry? There's a red flashing light. Oh, here we go. Brilliant.
Okay, yeah, I've got one now.
All right, let's come up here, Perry. So I've got a question, and anybody else got a question? I'm literally going to sprint at you.
Okay.
The mic.
Go on then.
So first one, I mean, I love the idea of oscillating.
Yeah.
But I think, like, what's the technique? How does that manifest in office?
Yeah.
So I'm saying, okay, let's oscillate.
Yeah.
I've got this process here. We're doing it like this.
Yeah.
What are the things I need to do to kind of like do a mini culture shift into this area, but not abandon the old?
Yeah. So maybe the term wouldn't land with everybody, right? So you might need to frame it in something that people recognize. But I do see organizations who are obsessively about continuous improvement. So they don't just do agile stand-ups and they do retrospectives. What they do is they go, how can we make that better next time? They're literally like Formula One pit crews who want to shave a nanosecond off it, right? So I think that comes from a mindset and about building it into the system that you have. I see so much intelligence either locked in people's heads or not socialized to the point that we can create value from it. So if nothing else, you almost create like some kind of Professor X in the X-Men kind of link it to everybody's minds and download it and learn from it. Now with technology, we can do that a lot more. So your oscillation comes from the sense that you are constantly building the future in real time. That's how I see it.
Yeah, and I like the idea of building something into a process. So think about if you've rolled out a process 1 to 10 or whatever it is, have an 11 there, which is how do we make the process better? That itself might give you some, you create some bandwidth in part of the process in order to review the process you've just
and I'll add to that, because part of the problem I see in the world of work right now is we go, well, somebody else must own that process. Actually, no. At that point in time, you might as well own it. Will you at least own the conversation about how to adapt it and improve it? So the phrase I saw that I really like to hang off this is that conversations are the smallest unit of change.
Yeah, very good. Okay, any questions from the crowd? Geraldine?
Yes.
Thanks so much, Perry. Change is scary.
Actually, Geraldine,
yes.
Before anybody answers a question, here's a challenge for everybody. You've got to introduce yourself.
Okay.
Because we're not doing name badges, so you've got to stand up
All
and
right,
say, who are you,
up.
what do you do?
Yeah.
Right, so I'm Geraldine, or G, and I have a people consultancy, and I help tech companies build or reset. So the restructuring has been a lot of that been going on.
I want to ban that word, by the way, restructuring. But anyway, that's another conversation.
So change is scary, right, for many people. Yeah. And I love what you were saying about moving from the legacy to the polymorphic, that step. How do you get people along that journey? Yeah. How do you get them to stop blocking? Because you see 80% of AI initiatives, they fail last year. And I hear anecdotally a lot of people going, hell no, I'm not going to go and train something, or I'm not going to enable this change that's going to get me out of the job. You're crazy. Have you seen the unemployment stats? Yeah. So how do you get that mindset, that psychological safety, when the reality is lots of jobs are going to go away?
Yeah. So science helps us because there's science on the impact of fear. And I don't just mean a kind of shock type of fear, persistent, prevailing, tiny forms of fear aggregate in us to cause us to have 3 reactions. One is that we absolutely get a bit frozen cognitively. We kind of lower our IQ a little bit when we're frightened. And that isn't just in a shock. If we're constantly looking over our shoulder, we are not as smart as we were before we had that fear. We also socially withdraw when we're frightened. So guess what? We become like this vessel of locked-in job description-ness. And that's not great. And then the third thing that fear has is that we naturally become less experimentational, and therefore we don't try things out. You've got to get rid of those things. And the counter to that isn't to just say deal with it. The counter to it is, what future do you want? What are you most comfortable with and least comfortable about the prospects in front of you? Dialogue it out. Get it really, really clear. Because I think until people start to air some of those things, both in an aspirational and a kind of worrisome sense, we can't deal with them. Now, this is where management and stuff needs to have a whole different game. You're not just programming the performance flows, you're looking out for somebody who needs to work out what the future needs to be for them. So again, this is where you have a mosaic of thousands of conversations going on. You don't have town halls and corporate propaganda win people over, because it won't. You literally stitch it together from those conversations. What people need to do is see themselves in a future that's more favourable to them than the one they've got right now, because they won't detach from it. Richard Beckard, OD practitioner, talks about the sense of dissatisfaction is the first part you have to get right before people want to know what does the future look like and what's the first step to get there. That's how we deal with this. So again, it's using something that's lying around, but it is a different way. We need to have those genuinely sincere conversations with people. So if we're thinking, where's all the work going to go when AI starts to knock it all out? We're going to be doing all this relational human sense-making stuff. That's what we're going to be doing. Now, if leaders and managers aren't equipped for that, you better start skilling them up now. So there's a big, massive customer service agents that I've come across, 500,000 operatives across the world who do customer experience and support for a number of brands, brought in AI, trained the operatives on AI, at the same time gave them emotional intelligence training. And guess what? Customer sat and NPS is off the charts because we looked after people in a relational sense as well as a technological sense. That's the future. People will think that's better than now.
Brilliant. I'm going to just underline that because I've got an idea. I'm going to actually claim myself to have credit for this. It's brilliant.
Love it.
It really is. So how do you get people to adopt AI when the ambient pressure is, hang on, this is going to reduce the sort of work I'm doing, and what's happened to my sort of time over task distribution if this thing comes in? So how about the concept of kind of guaranteeing to the people, like if you do create an efficiency gain, that a percentage of that efficiency gain goes back into retraining. So in other words, there's a measurement on how you get more efficient. If you say to the business, hey business, I'm going to help you get more efficient in our HR process, but you know what? I need 50% of that efficiency back into the team so that we can then focus on this higher value stuff. I think if you implemented that internally, you change the mindset of the people that are getting this feeling of this efficiency inflicted on them, and then they can think, actually, there is a positive future for us. And I also reckon this would be a powerful message for recruitment, because you can say, yes, we're an AI-first business, but we're going to pipe the efficiency gain back into human experience. So anyway, isn't that a genius idea, guys?
I like it.
Thank you very much. Yeah, you can applaud.
But vote Hung Lee. Yeah.
Next question.
Yeah,
please.
next
Let's
question.
move on.
Yeah. Any more?
Any more questions?
No.
Really?
Perry's going to hang around for the rest of the day, I'm sure. So if you have any questions you want to have, ask Perry. Go and grab him for a one-to-one. But round of applause for Perry Timms.
Thank you very much. Thank you.